In this video I'm going to explain how you can paint watercolors in vectors in the drawing app Adobe Draw. Welcome to Stayf Draws. I'm Stayf from the Groot, a Dutch illustrator and animator. I first made a sketch in Procreate and now I'm going to import it from my photos library and just gonna set it in a separate layer. Then I'm going to reduce the opacity to around 15%. And I'm going to set the layer to multiply. And underneath it I'm going to paint in a watercolor-like style. So I'm just using the basic brush, the default brush, but I'm setting the opacity to like 10%. And then you can gradually build up your colors. It's just the same as you would do with painting with real watercolors. You just have to lower the opacity of your paints. And I also tapered the brush. You can do that in the settings of your brush in Adobe Draw. And I'm just lightly, first making the outlines and just build it up gradually. And because your opacity is that low, when you use other colors, they will blend a little bit more. So I'm now selecting a little bit of a dark color, and you can already see the effect. With painting watercolors, you really need to take your time, because if you, make the opacity too strong, then you will lose the effect of the watercolors. What I find in Adobe Draw is that, sometimes your brush leaks a little, but, that also happens when you're painting with real watercolors on paper. So I'm just starting out with the lighter colors and then just build it up gradually. I've now set the brush to a taper. So when you press harder, you get a thicker stroke, and when you press lightly, you get a thinner stroke. And in that way, you can just play around with the pressure sensitivity of the Apple Pencil. Now using a bigger brush just to fill out the basic color of the little chicken. And that will be the base of all the feathers of the little chicken. When you don't lift your Apple Pencil from the canvas, it will remain in the same color, but when you reapply the Apple Pencil to the canvas, you will build up the colors more gradually. Now I just turned off the sketch, and this is a bit of a time lapse. I'm also going to work on the bunny, and that has more of a gray tone to it. So I'm first doing the outlines, and then I can turn off the sketch again and just first lay out the bigger colors and just build it up. And this is a time lapse, so I don't paint it this fast, but you get an idea of how I build up this painting. So when you have laid out the broader strokes or the washes, like it would be in doing a painting on paper, then you can work on the details a little bit more. Adobe Draw is quite a limited app to draw in, and there is a new app coming out. It's going to be an app with pixel art and also vector art, and that will be released, I think, in the end of 2019. The app's going to be called Adobe Fresco, and already saw some highlights of it, and it looks very interesting. But Adobe Draw is very limited. You cannot do that many things with it, so I have made a new layer for the bunny, so it can still, change it around, and you can also transform the layers. When you tap on a layer, then you can make it bigger or rotate the illustration. But when you do everything on one layer, it's going to be hard because you cannot separate. There's no lasso tool, so that's why I'm painting the bunny on a separate layer. And I've also set that layer to multiply, so when you paint something underneath it, it will also build up the colors, because with multiply you can also blend your colors a little bit more. I'm now selecting a little bit more of a lighter color, and I'm just doing some washes on top of the drawings I already did. And in that way you can also, blend it a little bit more. And when you lift up your pencil, you get more of a stain-like feel, because vectors are very graphical. And if you want to achieve a watercolor effect, it's better, to get some stains in your artwork. Otherwise it won't look like watercolors. So I've made the brush a little bit bigger. I'm just filling out bigger areas of the bunny. And when you lift it up, you can see there's a difference, and you get some artifacts you usually don't want when you doing vector art. I also made a separate layer for the grass underneath, and I'm now just selecting some colors. And you can also use a color picker in Adobe Draw. When you press on the color circle on the left and then drag it across the screen, then you can use a color picker and just select a color from your canvas. And that's great, if you want to use the same color and paint over it again. And I'm going to do the same with the color of the little chicken, and select a little bit of a darker color just to, make the contrast a little bit higher. And you just need to play around, with the colors, because you really need to build it up slowly, otherwise it will be too graphical. And what I almost do every time, I zoom out just to see how the overall effect of the illustration is going to look like. Now just filling in the details on the paws of the little chicken. And sometimes you get blobs in Adobe Draw. That's, I think, a flaw in the design. But you can undo an action when you swipe with 2 fingers from right to left. Then you can do a quick undo. When you really zoom in, you can see a lot of artifacts, and it looks a bit like mess, but that's also the charm when you're doing watercolors. Sometimes you cannot control the edges of a paint you just applied, and I try to recreate that in vectors as well. just using the eraser to erase some edges around the little chicken and the bunny. And in the end, you just have to, sign your artwork, and I do that in a separate layer as well. And I'm going to export this to Creative Cloud Files PDF, and then you can open up the illustration in Illustrator or in Photoshop. So this is how you can do watercolors in vectors in Adobe Draw. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, because each time I upload a new video, you get a notification. Drawing is fun, and practice makes perfect. See you next time. Doodles!